back to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning has been on jobs. Since 1938, the Milwaukee Center for Independence, also referred to as MCFI, has developed innovative approaches to assist people with disabilities, disadvantages, serious mental illness, and employment barriers to better live, work, and be part of the community. My next guest is Heidi Chada. She is the Vice President of Employment Services at MCFI. Hi, Heidi.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. I mentioned that MCFI has been making a difference in the lives of people in our community for over 70 years. So if you would tell us more about what you provide to individuals on a daily basis.
Well, we have had the honor of serving our community for over 80 years in a number of innovative ways that have evolved over those 80 years. We are originally founded to help immigrants from Europe better integrate into society and most specifically engage in the workforce. Today, we have over 30 community-based programs and serve over 20,000 individuals every single year. It's my honor to work with the programs called Employment Commercial Services. So we help individuals who are looking to find employment that meets their needs and desires to find that job through working with them to develop soft skills, building their confidence, and develop technical skills as well and connecting them with those resources. That's one small part of what we do, but we serve people from birth through adulthood in education, behavioral health, medical daycare, and life services programs in addition to what you just mentioned.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing out it's over 80 years. I didn't mean to take a decade away from the hard work that you've done over the years, but I think it's amazing just with all of the things that you just mentioned, how you've been able to make a difference in the lives of people who live right here in our community. With what you do every day, what are some of the barriers that your clients might face when it comes to gaining employment?
So we work primarily with individuals with significant barriers to employment, such as disability or other barriers like previous incarceration or a long lapse in employment. So it's often not what people think. Having lack of education can be a significant barrier, but one of the most significant barriers that we see is that people don't understand what their strengths are and what their marketable skills are. And we help them to build that confidence in who they can grow into and how they can better serve their community, their families, and themselves. So we spend a lot of our time helping people develop that sense of self-worth and soft skills, understanding how to interact with people in the workplace and at home, because it's about the whole person and how do you contribute more fully to your community. We also have technical skills training programs as well, because sometimes it's that certification that gets you recognized on a resume or really shines to a recruiter when you're on an interview.
Yeah. So
we really look at the whole gamut of what really help them demonstrate the worth they can bring to their community and in the process gaining their own independence.
And at MCFI, you believe in an inclusive and diverse workplace so that everyone does feel the value and the talents that they possess are recognized. So what are some of the ways that you're able to prepare your clients to go into the workforce, considering all of the things that you just mentioned?
We talk a lot to our clients about how to talk to potential employers about what their disabilities are to ease their comforts and to help market them and leverage those perceived disabilities as an advantage to the employer. So people have a misperception about what disability is. Disability can come in the form of a physical disability, a visual impairment, an auditory impairment, an intellectual disability, or intermittent issues with mental health. So we really help them to identify how can they market what their skills are and address any of the concerns an employer may have. On top of that, we find it's really important to partner with the job market. So it's a business-first relationship. We know unemployment is low, much different conversation than we would have had 10 years ago. And employers are really looking for pre-screened, skilled, qualified, dedicated employees. So we work with those employers to access that pre-trained workforce and help them understand the minimal barriers that may exist just as a perception to hiring a person with a disability, because it's not as scary as people would think, and they really are a valuable component of our workforce. And businesses need to really find that untapped market to help round out their workforce and make business happen every day.
That's a great point, because I was looking at your website and I was able to read a couple of success stories, and people really do have heartwarming stories on where they started and where they ended up. They've gotten awesome promotions, and I'm sure a lot of times they're doing things that they didn't really realize they could do.
You know, it is my honor to do what I do every day, to see people grow into who they're called to be through coordinated community resources, not just MCFI, but all of our community partners. And one of the most recent heartwarming demonstrations I have is just a young gentleman who had never been employed before, didn't really have any hopes for himself. He came to us through one of our training programs called Level Up. He completed the 9-week training program, which is paid, and during that process built a lot of confidence and skill set. He had an interview within 3 days of graduation, and within 7 days, he was on the job working $12 an hour, full-time, with benefits.
I love it.
That changes a person's life.
Oh, yeah.
Not only changes his life, but all the people that he knows, that he can say, look, I did something really good for myself through understanding who I am and believing in myself, and helping people follow in his path. And I think that's an amazing thing to witness and to be a part of.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it gives you the chill bump effect just hearing you talk about it. So for others who may want to read some of those stories, what is your website address?
We hope that you can visit us at www.mcfi.net, and there's a lot of great resources and success stories about who we are. And if there's any way that we can help serve our community more fully to become independent, give us a call, let us know. You can reach us at 414-937-2020.
All right. When you provide training to your clients, what type of classes or skills are you really trying to instill in them to get them prepared for the workforce?
Well, the people looking for jobs are very diverse. So we really do a great job of understanding what that person needs and helping them leverage resources they have in order to get through the training. So it really varies depending upon the person. So we always start with a comprehensive assessment of what are their needs. Some people we may work with for 2 or 3 years because they have a significant disability or barrier. Some people we can get to full-time employment within 9 weeks, as we talked about. So we start with that assessment and what do they need, and we specialize all of our training programs based upon where they're at and where they want to go. But always there's a heavy component of soft skills. The technical skills that you obtain will get you a job, but not leveraging your soft skills or having underdeveloped soft skills can help you lose that job. So we really focus on that, and then connecting them with the training and resources they need to meet their specific job goal.
That's very interesting. So when you look at individuals who are living with a disability, they are a group that is broadly defined under the Americans with Disabilities Act. In addition to physical disabilities, it also includes people who are struggling with addiction, or maybe they have epilepsy. That's just a few examples, but this demographic has always been underemployed. But would you agree that there have been some amazing gains over the last few years?
There have absolutely been some amazing gains, and we're coming up on an anniversary for Americans with Disabilities. And I think the biggest change that I've seen is the perspective and perception that people with disabilities and barriers don't have to hide it anymore, that you can reach out for help and start valuing what your skills are. So our focus now is concurrently, and I think as a country, concurrently addressing all the underlying challenges you may have, but rapidly engaging you in preparing to get into the workforce. And that's a huge change. And employers are much more willing to work with that employee to help them overcome some of those perceived barriers that may exist. So I think people are really understanding that people with disabilities are so diverse. Like you said, they could have a physical disability, which is very evident, to an intellectual disability, or a substance abuse. And some of the disabilities may be short-term or long-term, but employers are more willing to engage with and help that employee grow into the great employee they can be.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point that out, because if someone's watching, they may feel like they don't qualify to really take advantage of the great programs and services that you offer, but really it's a wide range of individuals who are accepted into the organization to help them get to where they would like to be.
I agree, and we have really great partnerships with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation in Milwaukee County to work with people to access funding. And we also have amazing community partners like the Zilber Family Foundation and Bader Philanthropies, so we can provide paid training to individuals who cannot connect with the funding stream, because it's really about bringing those services to each of the people that we serve in a place that's comfortable for them and helping them grow into that career that they really want to have.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about partnerships in just a second, but first I wanted to mention that many businesses, they're actually starting to talk about and recognize that diversity is a value add.
Absolutely.
So economists and advocates for people with disabilities, they also say a Labor Department rule change under the Obama administration has also helped spur change. So basically in 2013, the agency issued a provision requiring all federal contractors try to fill 7% of their workforce with individuals with disabilities. And I think that's a great example of advocacy and how the law really does help individuals who really are just really trying to make a living, and it's about more than a paycheck through your organization. That's very obvious. They also gain, you know, that self-respect and the dignity and all those things that every living person should have. So these are things that I think are important to point out so that people understand that politics in a way can play a part in changing lives.
And I think that's part of innovation, really changing what regulation and law does so it can help make people's lives easier. And it has changed the scope of the workforce. The other thing to realize is that people with disabilities and their direct family members have a buying power of $1 trillion. And really engaging people with disabilities in the job market is important. And about 88% of individuals say they'd more likely go and patronize and shop at a company that hires people with disabilities that support that. So there's not only a business case for it, but you're also helping to make your community stronger by connecting people with disabilities into a job. Because I don't know about you, I go to work every day not for the paycheck. I go because I love the relationships, the connections, and the great feeling I get from connecting with people.
Yeah, it really does help if you love what you do. That's for sure. So before we run out of time, obviously partnership is a huge component of what you do, and we find that out in this conversation. But for several years now, MCFI has teamed up with the Milwaukee Bucks, and you provided jobs for your clients at the Fiserv Forum. And what better place to be with high energy and fans and actually be able to work there and get a paycheck?
It is a great partnership for us, Fiserv Forum, and I think the city of Milwaukee. And employers like the Deer District and Milwaukee Bucks should really be applauded for putting diversity front and center. And they really wanted to focus on hiring people with disabilities and barriers to employment. So they hired over 40 of our trainees this season who worked all through the season, taking tickets, scanning people in, stocking condiment stands, working in the service side of it. And it made a difference to the Milwaukee Bucks because people could see that they're supporting their community in diverse ways, but it also helped them fill positions that were hard to fill.
Yeah.
And I think everyone wins in a relationship like that. So we thank the Milwaukee Bucks for their partnership and helping make a more vibrant community.
Yes, the Bucks are all about winning, and that for sure is a win-win scenario.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming by today and really shedding light on all the great things that you do and how you're able to make a difference in the lives of so many people every day.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time. Heidi Chada is the Vice President of Employment Services at MCFI. For more information on anything we've discussed today, you can visit mcfi.net or call 414-937-2020. That's going to do it for today's show. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. As always, thank you for watching, and I do hope you join us again next week as we take another look at our issues, Milwaukee. Have a great day.